Hello guys, Omni here. It's time to pick back up this week with Black Lightning as we continue our coverage of the CW Arrowverse shows post-crisis on Infinite Earths. So last night's episode we saw, so if you haven't seen it, there will be spoilers going forward, so there will be some spoilers ahead. I also will be covering a full reaction highlight video for the series finale of Arrow later tonight, so be on the lookout for that. But as for Black Lightning, let's go ahead and continue that. So if you haven't seen the episode, go ahead and tune out now. So if you remember from the episode prior, there was the soldier that had the chip in his neck that the Odell and them was controlling, and then his partner. After that, we pick up with him at the beginning of this episode. We learn his name is Sergeant Grail. He's making this video. It seems like he's starting to feel uneased with his position with the A.S.A. because of what they did with the threatening of these kids, the kids that are dying with their experiments and all that stuff, and really what happened to his partner as well. And he's recording this video, really going into this kind of like whistleblower kind of mode. We also follow up with Jen, who meets back up with Jefferson, her father, and she starts to open up about everything that has been involving her relationship with Odell, as far as how, she's been so restricted within the family as far as using her powers that Odell, like, giving her some kind of confidence, something to do with him, gave her this freedom that she didn't have before, and it got to her head. And when she saw what happens in those alternate realities during the previous episodes, it really kind of reality checked her with the way that path would lead her down. And they kind of come to a head. They kind of reconcile on that. Jefferson learns what she's done in the wake of this, what she's done for Odell. As we see later, he definitely goes on a little bit of a manhunt for Odell. We pick back up with Gamby, who after last episode, we saw TC started to destabilize. He meets up with Lynn in this episode and tries to get some of the metahuman stabilization serum from her so that he can give it to TC. And in agreement to do that, she offers him the serum, but in exchange for his access into the A.S.A. network so that she can try to find a way to get back to her records, get her research, get some of the things that she needs from the A.S.A., and they make that trade. When she finally does get access to these files, these records, the network, she discovers the video that, Sergeant Grail was recording about his distaste with it. She also finds the security camera footage where he found her bag when Gamby picked her up and she dropped it, had the green light or research and some of that other stuff in there. I think she really only wants the green light at this point, but she finds out he has that. She finds that evidence that he didn't turn it in because he's kind of trying to weigh on what to do with it, what to do with the situation. They decide to set up a meet and he returns her bag. She immediately just dives right into the green light. He doesn't notice what she's doing, thank goodness, but she just, man, her addiction is insane. I know it boosts her brain power. It allows her to keep chugging through all of this research and getting this stuff done, but it's definitely leading her down a dark path. And it's not working very good on her health so far. But they agree to work together in order to bring down the A.S.A. And to do that, they know that the A.S.A. is trying to create their own stabilization serum at this point, and that they need to extract Tobias, whose bone marrow is the key to formulating the serum that they need. So their idea is to break out Tobias. So Lynn comes up with this idea with her research that she thinks she's able to create a temporary serum that will give temporary metahuman powers to a non-metahuman. And Grail offers to be the experiment, the guinea pig for it to test and see if it works. Because, if Lynn, who was wanting to use it on herself, if she took it, it failed and she died from it, there's nobody out there that can cure these kids. There's nobody out there with the research in hand, the know-how to rectify this. So if something happened to her, all of this is lost. The kids' lives are in danger, all that stuff. So they tested on Grail, and it turns out it's a success, and it grants him invisibility. So that's their plan. They're going to break in, inject Tobias with the invisibility power-up, and sneak him out. In the meantime, Black Lightning and Thunder cut off one of Odell's convoys in which he is riding along in, and they completely wreck the cars around him, and they kidnap Odell. After they get their hands on Odell, Gamby, Anissa, and Jefferson are all playing up and pretending like they're going to torture him. Definitely selling it. I definitely thought they were going to actually go that route. But, he's vying back at him, talking about how he's a patriot, his philosophies, and how it compares with what they do, just kind of rambling on, taking the high ground. in all of these ways despite all the evil he's done, but he places the blame on the fact that he's a patriot and he'll do what he needs to for his country or whatever. But he gets himself talking, trying to like feign his reasons and stuff like that. But what they were actually doing was just baiting him with the torture aspect of it so that they can get him talking enough to get a voice scan of his vocal cords, the vocal patterns of his voice, so they can try to simulate it. We cut back to the pit where the A.S.A. major is meeting with Painkiller now that they have just gotten word that Odell's been kidnapped. And she tells him that he needs to track down the Pierces, kill them all. It doesn't matter what the deal was that Odell made, they're rescinding it, and they need to get Odell back, and just sends them out on the hunt. Jen and Brandon end up meeting up, and they decide that they're going to go after Odell. They're going to try to stop this. And before they go out, they decide to, Jen takes him to Gamby's hideout so that she can get her suit. During this time, he learns all about the Pierces, all that stuff, meets TC, and he even starts talking about, am I going to get my own suit? Am I going to be, what's my superhero name going to be? Or, well, no, Jen makes a comment that he can't get a suit until he comes up with the name. And he starts to say, you know, a couple things sparking off his mind, and it starts to seem like he's going to lean into saying Geo-Force. Could be their own little take on Geo-Force, kind of changing it up and changing around some of the backstory on that, doing their own little spin on the character. While they're there, though, they see one of Gamby's monitors has Odell on it, so they freak out, and Jen's like, oh no. No, Dad, not today. And she goes to hunt them down to find where they stashed him. During all this time, Lala's been having his crew go out and kind of poke around the town to try to figure things out. One of his crew members goes across this love hotel thing and finds Lady Eve sneaking in. Now, the guy himself, crew member he sends in there doesn't necessarily know who it is. But when he takes the video back to Lala, he was like, that's Lady Eve. And he kind of goes on to explain that the reason she's alive, that she's back, she was actually in one of those vats that brought him back to life back when we last saw him there. So that's the same. That's how she came back, apparently. So it's not some multiverse change. It's not some retcon of the universe with Earth Prime being created, which would have been a good out for how that came to be rather than cutting back into that. But it works. It's whatever. Jen eventually shows up just as Gamby, Jefferson, and Anissa are in the middle of scanning. Because before we last saw them, after the whole torturing thing, the voice scanning, Jefferson zapped him with a huge bolt of lightning just to get some of that out of his system, and it knocked him out. So while he's unconscious, they've been scanning his face to try to recreate it, get a mold of it, because they're trying to make this virtual simulation using their voice scan and this scan of his face to kind of manipulate the hologram that he was using in the previous episode to try to give some kind of a fake announcement back to the A.S.A. using his voice print and all that garbage. But Jen comes in, breaks that up, and was like, what is going on here? And then as that all happens, Khalil and a bunch of A.S.A. agents just burst into the house. And then during all the commotion, Jen's just like, what is happening? Khalil, he's alive? And everybody else is like, we knew about it. And she was like, blah, blah, blah. You got to stop. And that's not Khalil. And during the whole foray, she manages in self-defense to, use her own powers, Jen does, to take down Khalil and neutralize him. But during all that time, the A.S.A. agents were actually able to get around to Odell and get him free. And by the end of the episode, when we catch back up, they do track that he has made it out of Freeland and is returning to Gotham. So we'll see how that all lands into perspective down the road. After all the fuss with the A.S.A. and the agents and Odell escaping with Khalil and all that, the gang managed to take Khalil back to Gamby's bunker, and they have him in stasis there. TC was able to actually tap into the chip. While everybody's arguing about whether or not they knew Khalil was alive, why they didn't tell Jen, how everybody around her knew about this, how she doesn't need their protection, all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. Same story. We've been hearing this all the time. But TC is able to communicate with the chip that's in Khalil's neck and was able actually to get through to the real Khalil. Because he goes back into the group and breaks up all the fuss and talking to Jen and was like, Khalil was your ex, right? He wanted me to tell you he loves you. And it was just a good little moment. So Khalil is in there. So maybe they can use TC to get around this chip or rework this chip so they can get it back. We catch back up after that with Lynn, who is breaking Tobias out of the pit. And just as they're about to make it, as they get to the road, as they're waiting on their ride, Tobias tries to betray her. But lo and behold, Lynn has also gave herself power. So she's got the shield, she's got a power up, and she just knocks him out. Grail shows up in a van. They're starting to load him in. And just as they load Tobias into the back of this van, they get zapped in the back of the neck. Both of them do with these tasers. And we hear this person shows up and speaking in Markovian to a radio, calling in for their teleporter, which we saw earlier in the season, to come and pick them up. And that is where the episode ends. So this is where the story progressed. This is where it's gone from now. I enjoy this episode. I like the action. I like that the whole like Lynn storyline is starting to kind of peak a little bit, at least until the Markovians show up. So we'll see how that pans out. Tobias thinking he had the upper hand for a hot moment when he was like trying to manipulate Lynn while she's trying to get him out, and he thought he had a game planned in mind, but it all backfired. Odell's whole thing kind of coming apart was really interesting. I'm curious to see what's going to happen now that he's not in Freeland now. What they're going to do, is he outside the reach? Or is he going to show up in Batwoman? Is she going to help them? Is there going to be some kind of hint? If he's going to Gotham, they have an in. And I would like them to take that opportunity to reach out and acknowledge the greater universe. I don't know if they'll do that, but we'll see how that plays out. But the Khalil thing, I was so relieved to see this finally be outed to the whole team. Everybody was finding out one piece at a time that Khalil was back, being alive, manipulated, resurrected in this way as a Terminator. And it's finally, everybody knows about it. It's all aired out. It's out in the open, just like with Lynn and her addiction. Finally, these little secretive plot threads that's just been in the background, I'm just waiting for those to pop and come out. We finally got most of those out in the field now. So I'm really curious to see how this is all going to play out and go from here. The fight with, I think Khalil is Painkiller on this mode, is a Terminator mode. He's just badass. Like his action scenes, his moment, his air, his just everything involving him when he's on Hunter Killer mode. I really enjoy it. I feel bad for it with the whole arc and everything, but he kicks ass. And we'll see how that goes out. If they get him out of it, snap him out of it, and see what happens with that whole storyline, we'll see. I really want them to lean more into the interconnectivity of this whole thing. The Markovian American War thing, see where that goes with the metahuman war. It's something that's been in the comics, something that's been in Young Justice, something that's repeated a lot lately. So I really want to see them expand on that, because they turned it away from the Markovians so much and turned it against the A.S.A., making them the villains, that I don't know how it's going to balance out with them having these two factions that they are really working against. So I don't know. It might end up getting kind of muddled. I'm surprised at how long for having shorter seasons than the other shows on the network, that this has been kind of dragging some of these things out, especially for the past 2 seasons. But yeah, I like the episode overall. I really did. I dug it. I'm curious to see where this goes from now. Is Brandon going to become Geo-Force? Maybe. We'll see. What do you guys think of this episode? Where do you think this is going to go? What are some of your qualms or praises with the episode or the season in general so far? My favorite thing about this season is honestly Black Lightning's new suit. It looks amazing. I love it so much more than the original suit. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the episode. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. We'll carry on that conversation after the video. And don't forget to check in and tune in tonight. It'll be definitely, probably around 4 a.m. So probably more likely tomorrow morning that you'll actually see my reaction for the final episode of Arrow ever later tonight. My reactions to that, I may or may not be an emotional mess. It depends on how it all goes, but tune in. I'd love to see you guys there. But that is it for this video. If you like this video, support the channel by liking, commenting, subscribing, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care, everybody.